technical difficulties, but you guys are hanging in there. Greatly appreciate it. It's a Friday edition, and I'll let Chris get back to what he was doing, which is explaining something to someone. So there you go.
No, we were just talking about some of the stuff that happened last night around sports. Ryan, sometimes doing two teams is fine. I know that some people like to do 3 and 4. It's just you have to remember the more parts you throw into it, more ways you can get derailed. I'm sure. I guess if you got a lot of teams that you're big fans of that you want to try to run together, you can. But just remember that as they say, with great risk comes great power comes great responsibility. With great lengths of parlays, the greater the risk that somebody is going to screw you over. We're looking at you, St. Louis.
Yeah. It's been my experience that usually when you do those kind of things, you go for 4, one of the 3, one of them is going to mess up. Because, again, as you said, with great risk comes with great reward, but the other part has to do with the fact that you don't always get the wonderful situation where everybody hits for you. Sometimes it's better to pick 2 things that you feel really good about than 4, where 3 you feel really good about it, and the 4th one you're not so sure about it.
Yeah, and if that's the case where there's 3 you feel good about, and there's 4, and the 4th one you're shaky on, just go with 3.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I put up a 4 because they like for what we do to have a 2 and 4, and then
right.
One at the end you can just pick whatever you want. Like out of the 10 that we put up yesterday, I think 7 of them were winners. So I mean, you could have put something together out of that. I mean, thanks Brooklyn for not showing up, making the Wizards look like a capable basketball team.
Which is doing something.
Yeah, we just talked about Milwaukee, how I was disappointed with the way they played against Philadelphia, and I was talking to them about Montana State. They were down 2. There was 0.3 of a second left. They inbounded the ball, and you know how the ruling is: you can't catch and shoot in 0.3 of a second. Well, you can catch and shoot in 0.3 of a second if you're that slow on the clock.
Right.
And that's Eastern Washington. They were the home team, and they were still slow on the clock. The guy got the shot off for Montana State that would have tied the game, but they waved it off because they stuck to what the rule is instead of looking at the replay. If the replay shows you get the shot off, it's not Montana State's fault that they were slow starting the clock.
Right.
But they got shafted.
We see Joaquin did good yesterday. Thank you. Good to know.
Joaquin, who did you hit on yesterday? Just out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Chris, to your point, I did a game in northern Iowa one time, and northern Iowa was down by a point, and they had a very favorable clock guy at the northern Iowa, and in 2.5 seconds they hit a 3-pointer, won the game. So, and that's going the length of the court. That's not just an inbound from the side. So you never know, and sometimes you get those favorable clock situations when teams at home. You seldom get them when you're on the road.
But that was the kicker. Montana State was the road team in Eastern Washington. The home team. They were still slow getting the clock off. You figured they would have just run it off as soon as you threw the ball in.
Right.
But then Montana State they didn't count the basket, so they ended up losing.
I've seen that too. I've seen where the road team wins a game where you're sitting there going, if I were the guy that was running the clock, wouldn't I want to get that move quickly? There's John Center was saying he did a live bet in the second half yesterday, I guess, in the Utah game.
Yeah, that was a wild game over there. Some of these teams, you look at them and you're like, I don't know what happened to Stanford. I thought they were going to win that game easily, and then they fell apart. They scored 3 points, I think, in the final 6 minutes or something like that. And you're not going to win basketball games like that. I mean, speaking of teams that took a dump, Northern Colorado took a dump. I thought they were going to win after they scored, like we said, they scored 32 points in 5.5 minutes against Southern Utah to win, and then they scored 58 points yesterday to lose to Idaho State.
Matthew has an interesting question, and that is, do we plan on tuning in for all the All-Star festivities or bet on it?
The All-Star games are so fickle because nobody's going to play defense at all. I mean, usually the safe. I don't even know what they've set the overhead for those. I imagine it's probably like $3 billion. Because that's basically what they boiled out to. It's at 321.5, so that just tells you that, look, we're not going to play defense. Even 321.5 is probably low based on what we've seen in previous All-Star games. I mean, what was last year's? Didn't end up like in the 170s or something like that.
I'm curious, Matthew, if you're asking about, they do prop bets, right? Or do they put bets on the skills competition and
I'm pretty sure they do.
the slam dunk and 3-point play and all that sort of. I mean, the interesting part of that, Matthew, is that it's such as Chris was saying, it's a fickle situation. You just don't know who's going to have a hot night in that particular night. There have been times when I'm absolutely certain that a certain player is going to win a slam dunk contest, and they don't because they just don't perform. Or they've done it so many times, everybody there is not impressed. It's hard now to get a dunk that gets everybody excited.
The other thing that I don't like now about the All-Star game is they went to the Elam scoring, which is what they do in the TPT, that big tournament that they have during the summertime, where it's X points over whatever the score is at 3 quarters. I'm not a big fan of that.
Right.
Then you're playing to a target score instead of actually playing out the clock.
There isn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying I don't like that particular format. I mean, if you're going to make it an All-Star game and you're going to play 48 minutes, then play 48 minutes. Don't play 36 minutes and then go, we're just going to next team to score or reach this target number wins. I mean, that's just stupid.
I think this is where Malkin is explaining where he got his big win.
Yeah, and Nevada, they were playing San Jose State. That's probably one of the few teams that you would back Nevada against because the Spartans are so bad. That game was blowout city written all over it. The sad part was that Nevada played better against them in San Jose than they did at home.
Well, things happen, right? And they happen to people. Let's get to the board and see what's going on today.
Yeah, take note. There's not a lot of games that everybody's excited about because it's Friday and everybody plays on Saturday for the most part. So you see a lot of teams that we're not necessarily used to. I mean, these two you're used to if you talk about the Horizon League a lot.
Right.
Oakland favored by 4 at home over Wright State. They're trying to avenge the 75-64 loss they took to the Raiders at Wright State back on February 5th. Remember, that was back when they had the snowstorm up in the Northeast. So those teams were supposed to play. They both had games Thursday. They were moved to Friday, so then they had to play Friday and then Saturday.
Right.
Wright State 15-12. Oakland is 18-8. They're 8-0 at home. These are two teams near the top of the standings in the Horizon League. Wright State 12-6. Oakland 11-4. Oakland 67 in scoring offense, 75.9 points a game. They're 173rd in field goal percentage, 65th in 2-point shooting, and they're 6th in free throws. You can't stress that enough. There's too many teams out there leaving points on the floor all over the place, either costing you the potential to cover, or in some cases costing them a chance to win. Look at Boise State. Look at the close games they've lost because they don't knock down free throws.
Right. And
that's going to cost somebody come tournament time. When you face a team that's from a mid-major that makes free throws, you're going to see some big team, could be Purdue, because Purdue, they find a way to lose to teams that whenever we talk about how good they are. Somebody's going to lose to a team from a mid-major that nobody's ever heard of, unless you watch our show, because they knock down free throws. And that's going to be, then everybody's going to be like, well, how have we never heard of this team? Well, because you're brainwashed into thinking that the only teams that you can see are the teams that are on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, ESPN48.
The power conferences, yeah.
And Fox Sports 39. So there's a lot of good teams out there that people don't know about. And you'll see them come March Madness. We talk about Vermont. We talk about Wyoming. We talk about Colorado State. Those are all teams you're going to see that are going to cause issues for people.
Well, if there's one thing, Chris, I was just going to say, if there's one thing Chris and I have stressed, and Chris has been very good with the stats on it every time that he puts up a game, it's the fact that we can't stress enough that free throws, when you've got two relatively good teams facing each other, for that matter, relatively bad teams facing each other, that if the game comes down to free throws, you're going to want to know which one of those two teams is going to be, better from the line. And Chris gives you that in pretty much every analysis that he does. And it's important because, frankly, how many games have we seen over the years that have come down to free throws? And you're sitting there at home throwing stuff at the television going, how could he miss that free throw when the game's on the line? Well, it happens. Now, as I said, Chris has been fantastic at giving you at least, and that's probably one of the most overlooked statistics when people bet is they don't pay attention to the free throw percentages on the teams that they, wager on. And invariably it comes down to a game where it's decided by free throws, and that's the one thing they miss. So pay attention, boys and girls. Circle that. When Chris gives it to you, it's an important stat.
I mean, if you look, like, we'll just use Boise State as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State is 20-6, but if you look at it against the spread, they're only 13-12.
Mm-hmm.
If you look deeper into Boise State's issues, they have issues.
Right.
They are 350th in the country in free throw shooting. There's only 358 teams, and all the ones below them, minus maybe Army, because Army's okay, suck. Mississippi Valley State, Maryland Eastern Shore, McNeese State, Eastern Illinois, who we've talked about as a doormat repeatedly, Columbia, we'll get to in a few minutes, Nichols State, and Sam Houston State. Those are the teams worse than Boise State. You're not going to see any of those teams playing in March Madness. And if Boise State doesn't fix their free throw problem, you're not going to see them around very long either. And Leon Rice is going to be like, but come on, we won 20, 22, 23 games. Well, so what? You lost in the first round because you can't knock down a free throw to save your life.
Chris, here's a quick question from our buddy Kathy. Kathy, I'll tell you what, hold on to that thought, because if you pay attention over the next few minutes, Chris is going to hit on a whole bunch of stuff that I think if you wait for a minute and just kind of take some stuff down, that's a question that I think will be better answered toward the end of the show than right now. So hang with us, Kath. We promise that we'll get to you. And Chris, here's a question going from our buddy Ryan. He wants to know about Princeton. Couple of points tonight, something fishy.
Yeah, I don't get why Princeton is only favored by a couple of points. I know Brown plays tough basketball at home, but still, when you look, Brown is still only 12-13. Yeah, they beat Cornell on the road, but before that, they escaped Dartmouth by 2 points at home. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I know Brown played tough at Princeton last month. They lost 76-74. But I like Princeton there. I think, only giving 2 points is a boon for the Tigers. I mean, Princeton, you talk about an Ivy League team, but, they're Ivy League team that has actually played some power teams. They played Oregon State, which doesn't beat them a lot because Wayne Tinkle's team has been terrible. But they lost to Minnesota in double overtime. They beat South Carolina. They beat Drexel. They beat some teams from the Patriot League, and they've held their own in conference play. They're 7-2. Their 2 losses were a 6-point loss to Yale, who's played well this year in the Ivy League, and a 5-point loss at Cornell. And foreshadowing, kids, Cornell's coming up. And Cornell's a good basketball team. So I mean, you're not talking about a team that is getting beat by bad teams. You look at their losses, like I said, they lost to Minnesota in double overtime. They lost at Monmouth. They lost to Hofstra by 4, and then they had those 2 losses at the Ivies. Princeton, they're still running the same Pete Carrill offense that they've run for an eternity.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitch Henderson is running the program now, but I mean, they're still playing Pete Carrill basketball.
Yep.
And it works. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
By the way, Nathan chimed in and said he started late to class. He was doing extra homework. We do not grade down for when you do your homework. And, Nathan was a big winner yesterday. So good for you, Nathan. We're happy when we see our our gang out there win. Let's move on from.
Don't forget to send all your money to me.
There you go. His PayPal account is in the show box below. All right. So let's move on from Oakland to Wright State. Where are we going next, boss?
Well, we just talked
about it. Cornell.
And I can't figure this one out either. Granted, I know Cornell is below 500 on the road, but how are you an underdog going to Dartmouth when you're a Dartmouth team that is 5-15, you're 2-7 in the Ivies, and you're only 2-4 on your own floor? What of those numbers means that you should be favored over anybody? I don't even think I'd favor Dartmouth over IUPUI.
That'd be a toss-up.
But, I mean, look at the difference in scoring. Dartmouth, 286 in scoring offense, 66.9 points a game. They're 316th in field goal percentage. They're 300th in two-point percentage. They're middle of the pack in three-point shooting. I'll give them that. Meanwhile, they are you're facing a Cornell team that is 9th in scoring offense at 81.2 points a game. They're 40th in field goal percentage, 47.1. They're 9th in two-point field goal percentage, 57.4%. They are 18th, knocking down 9.9 threes a game. They're 14th in three-point attempts, 28.1. They're 114th in three-point shooting. Cornell 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 as an underdog. They're 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 after a straight-up loss. They're 18-6 in their last 24 on the road with the team for a home winning percentage below 400. Dartmouth 1-7 in their last 8 as a home favorite. They're 0-4-1 in their last 5 following a straight-up loss with at least 20 points. John says, isn't that a red flag that they're an underdog?
Not necessarily, John.
I mean, Cornell beat Dartmouth by 8 at Cornell. I believe it was last month.
Mm-hmm.
Date. Yeah, January 2nd. I know that, Cornell's, like I said, they're coming off a 1-point loss to Brown. They lost to Penn by 5. But they also beat Brown on the road. They beat Harvard at home. They beat Princeton at home. They beat Columbia at home. Dartmouth, I don't get what Dave McLaughlin's problem is. They started 3-1. They have a win over Georgetown. That's their best win of the year, if you want to count that. But since they started 3-1, Dartmouth is 2-14. I don't have faith in Dartmouth. Dartmouth's best chance is to play at the snail's pace that they do. They're 338 in tempo, and hope that Cornell misses all their shots from outside. If Cornell hits 7 or 8 threes or anywhere close to their average, then Dartmouth is going to get buried. I think the only reason they're favored is because this game is in the Lead Arena, which is not a big gym. It only seats about 2,100 people.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like you're getting a big home court advantage there. Because most of the people, the Ivy Leagues, they don't necessarily turn out for basketball. They're more into turning out for hockey, unless you're Harvard, Yale, Penn, Princeton, or I guess now Cornell, because Cornell's playing good basketball league. I just don't have faith in Dartmouth. I'm taking the points and walking away laughing because I don't understand why Dartmouth would be favored over anyone.
No, and you're absolutely right there. Dartmouth, the big green, is going to lose to the big red tonight.
Yeah, Ryan says it makes you wonder if the mob's involved in the Ivy League games.
Ryan, as funny as that may sound, there's heavy betting on the Ivies. So, you may be onto something there, buddy. You may be onto it. All right, let's move on, Chris. Let's go to the ice, I guess, right?
Yeah, because it's a light schedule for everybody with no NBA. Yeah. Stars are on the road. The puck line is a plus 170. The money line is minus 160 over the Blackhawks. The Stars 26-19 and 2. 9-12-1 on the road. The Blackhawks 18-25-7. Braden Holtby 9-10-1 with a 278 goals against, the 912 save percentage. He's supposed to be in net. I would personally start Jake Ottinger myself. Marc-Andre Fleury 16-17-3, 288 goals against, 920 save percentage, 3 shutouts for the Blackhawks. Chicago beaten 7-4 last night by Columbus, so they're playing the second game of back-to-back here. Dallas hasn't played since Tuesday when they beat Colorado in that game at the Ball Arena, where we all were surprised that the Avalanche only scored 1 goal in losing 4-1. Dallas 16th in goals per game, 2.9 2.96. They're 20th goals against, giving up an average of 3 per game. The Blackhawks, 30th goals per game, 2.42. Anybody that's watched us when we talk about the NHL knows the two teams that they're better than when it comes to putting the puck in the net. That being our good buddy Goulart's Arizona Cactus and Montreal Canadiens.
Nobody's team.
They don't call themselves the Montreal formerly known as Canadiens because I'm pretty sure Jacques Plante and everyone are, disowning the franchise for what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Blackhawks 24th in goals against. The Stars 4-0 in their last 4 as a road favorite. They're 5-0 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. They're 5-0 in their last 5 on the road. They're 2-8 in their last 10. Or the Blackhawks 2-8 in their last 10 playing second game of back-to-back. And they're 0-5 in their last 5 as a home underdog. I like Dallas here.
It's funny. It's Braden Holtby and Marc-Andre Fleury 5 years ago. That would be a very tempting situation because both of them at that point were playing outstanding in the net. But, they're two guys on the back 9 of their career at this point.
Right. Back 9 and headed to the clubhouse.
Right. The 19th hole. Yeah. So from Dallas and Chicago, we go to.
Well, real quick, Tom does have a valid point. Sometimes line makers have information that's not available to the public, but
True, Tom.
Everyone that I've talked to about that, it doesn't make sense to anybody. So either Brian Earl is playing his cards real close to the vest, and somebody that's a Cornell backer or something knows that a guy's not going to play or something, or else they use the segment that Steen and Reichel used, odds makers were drunk. Because, we saw this the other day when we saw Delaware play James Madison.
Right.
And I said I had no idea why Delaware was only favored by 6 because they had already beaten James Madison on the road by 16, and they were playing at home, and then they probably went out and waxed them by 21. So sometimes the money just drives it one way or the other, and like Jim said, there's heavy betting in the Ivy, so that line can swing, at a moment's notice. And it's something you got to watch out for, too.
So we go from the Stars and the Blackhawks to the Wild and the Panthers.
About the Wild. Wild, they're a plus 110 on the money line. If you go with the puck line at plus 1.5, they go it's a minus 225. The Panthers 33-10-5 overall, but they're just 10-7-5 on the road. They did win the other night over Carolina in overtime, much to my chagrin. The Wild are 30-12-3. They're 16-3-1 at home. Sergei Bobrovsky, of course, 24-4-3 with 254 goals against, 919 save percentage with a shutout. In net for Florida, Cam Talbot, 19-9-1 with 286 goals against, 912 save percentage with 1 shutout. For Minnesota, interesting. It's going to be a clash of offenses. Florida leads the league goals per game with 4.06. The Wild are third with 3.78. Both teams middle of the road when it comes to keeping the puck out of their own net. But a big stat there, Jim. The Wild average 4.55 goals a game on home ice. Florida's only averaging 3.27 on the road because they do all their damage at home too. The Wild 5-1 in their last 6 against Atlantic Division teams. They're 8-2 in their last 10 overall. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with winning percentage above 600. Florida has gone just 1-7 in the last 8 meetings in Minnesota. They've gone 8-18 in the last 26 meetings overall. I like the Wild here. I wouldn't be surprised if they win outright because they are just torching people when it comes to playing on home ice. I believe the stat was in their last 3 home games they've tallied, I believe it's 18 goals.
Yeah, quick note to Chris. I'm sorry, to Nathan. No, it's Tom. Okay, I see Tom. Tom, the Hurricanes are at home tonight.
Yep, got them coming up too.
Yep, and Paul wants to know.
Further down the page, but.
Yeah, Paul wants to know, Chris, if the Wild and the Panthers are going to go over.
I think the possibility is definitely there. You're looking at 2 high-scoring teams. Minnesota, like I said, they've averaged 6 goals a game in their last 3 at home. They average 4.5 as it is, and we know Florida can score. I think going over is probably a pretty safe bet. back. I think I put that down in the shot in the dark segment, just because just look at the way these teams score. I mean, they're scoring like it's the halcyon days of Gretzky, Curry, Messier, and the Oilers in the '80s when everybody was winning 7-6 and 6-5 as opposed to the way it's seen now, where you're lucky half the time it's 3-2. But just to further your point about the over, it's gone over in 7 of the last 9 meetings between these teams. Florida's seen it go over 4 of their last 5 as a road favorite. Minnesota's seen it go 10-2-1 in their last 13 against Atlantic Division teams, and 13-3 in their last 16 on one day of rest. I think 4-3 might be the low end of the scoreboard at this point.
Any idea about Missouri and Mississippi State in college basketball, Chris?
God, Mississippi State is completely falling apart. I
Yeah,
thought they were
pretty bad.
Yeah, tournament team for a while, and then all of a sudden they've lost 6 out of 7, 7 out of 9. They've dropped to 5 and 7 in the conference. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like they've lost to bad teams. They lost to Arkansas by 8. They lost to Tennessee by 9. LSU beat them by 4. Alabama beat them by 5. Their only blowout in the stretch was when they got trounced by Texas Tech in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. My big concern with Missouri is the same concern that I have with them seemingly every year. Can they score enough points? I mean, you're looking at Missouri's output of in their last several games. They scored 54 against Auburn. They scored 50 against Iowa State. They scored 65 against Florida. They scored 62 against Vanderbilt. And they scored 57 against Arkansas. Their 2 games over 70 were against Texas A&M and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is another team that's completely fallen off the rails. You have to wonder how long Kermit Davis is going to survive with the fact that they're now. And Texas A&M, Buzz Williams, he was off to a hot start, and then all of a sudden his team has gone right down the toilet. They had lost 8 straight before beating Florida the other night. 12.5 is a big margin, especially when you're a struggling team like Mississippi State is right now. Ben Howland has got to try to figure some things out. Obviously, injuries have taken a toll of the fact that, Iverson Molinar can't do it all by himself. I would probably take the points. These teams will meet again Sunday in Columbia, the ever popular home and home set to get these conference games out of the way. Look at the Mississippi State right now to beat anybody by double digits.
Well, it's time to move on from the ice, and let's start talking about.
And Jim has frozen. So we'll take a look. Yeah, Wild and Panthers overall, like Paul said, yeah, I think that one's going to go over. And I think you're right, Nathan. I think Mississippi State will win the game, but it's going to be a game that's probably going to fall in that 6-8, maybe. And that's something that they're going to have to try to fix. And there's Jim. He had to refresh himself.
Yeah. Sometimes it's refreshing. Yeah, I know. I heard. I had to come back here and heat things up a little bit. Cleveland State tonight. Did you see that one from Ryan?
Yeah, I saw it. I've got Cleveland State coming up.
Oh, okay.
One of the bottom slides. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, we'll get to them. All right. So where are we going next, there, boss?
Well, that was the highlights of the show because we said we were going to keep it to 2 of each.
That's right. So we are now at a point where I guess you want to talk a little bit about the Daytona 500.
Sure, we can talk about the Daytona 500.
Anybody out there interested in Daytona 500?
Oh. I know Matthew was because he asked about it earlier.
Yeah, I did. It's going to be an interesting situation because we saw, as I said in our pre-show when Chris and I were talking, on Wednesday you saw the Hendrick cars do very well, putting 2 teammates on the pole. Kyle Larson being the defending champion of the of the NASCAR season. And then, in a big surprise last night, it was a good night for Ford because the Roush team came back with Brad Keselowski now as a team owner with the likes of Roush Fenway, and they did well. Penske has reason to be happy because for all but about the last 5 laps of the race, when Joey Logano got into trouble, they had a good time. So it should be a wide open race, Chris. I think that the next gen cars for both Rick Hendrick and for of course Roush Fenway, and that doesn't count all the other situations with Toyota. Toyota didn't have a very good um, duel last night, but that doesn't mean that they can't have a good 500. So,
right, and Denny Hamlin is, I think, still going off as a co-favorite. I think Larson is right there with him. Of course, the first thing I think of when I think of Daytona, of course, is what happened with the late Dale Earnhardt back in 2001. No matter how many times they go back to that track and everything else, it sticks out in people's heads. I mean, let's be honest. And it's weird, when you watch a race and you see the 3 car out there, but you know it's not him, and then you don't see a Dale Jr. out there either.
Right.
But talking about the race Sunday, Hamlin is one. He's the only guy to win 3 times that's active out there. Which is going to be interesting. You look at Harvick has won twice, but he had his struggles of late. Keselowski's won once. Logano, of course, won in 2015?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like the Busch brothers. Personally, I find, Kyle to be a bit of an arrogant guy, but it'll be interesting to see what he does. And Larson, Larson is basically the Lazarus of NASCAR because he was given up for dead during the pandemic. And then, now he's back. And what do you think of Ryan Blaney, Jim? Do you think he's got a shot?
Yeah, sure. Blaney's got a good car. He's got a good crew chief and a good, a good team. So I wouldn't be surprised at all with Ryan Blaney. The thing with Daytona, there's 3 things you have to pay attention to about Daytona. Number 1 is the physicality that it takes on you as a driver. Okay? You're going 500 miles on a super speedway. Okay, so that means that any little tick, because everybody's going, at or around 200 miles an hour. So Matthew likes Blaney too. Good to know. So at any point in time, if you have a momentary lapse of concentration, it could cost you seriously. There's always a wreck, and more often than not, 2 or 3 that collects a bunch of cars that are either in contention at the time or even leading at the time. So you have to be careful of that. And something this year that really is a lot different than times in the past, and that is that supply chain issues, right? They've had supply chain issues, which means that there's a less amount of tires that they can use. There's less amount of parts that they can, fix. So, as a matter of fact, there was a lot being made last night on the broadcast that, when these cars normally would do a burnout when they win or they do something when they win, they got to be careful because the car they're running last night is the car they're starting in the 500. So, in the old days, you may qualify one car and then come back and use the second car for the race, but that's not the case anymore. You've got to play it out. So there's attrition, there's physicality, there's trying to stay out of trouble, and on the super speedways, you've got teaming up, which you saw last night, where somebody will push you and help you draft your way through. It doesn't usually work out well for people who go freelance, right? If you don't have somebody pushing behind you, if you get out of line, you could be in first place.
You go from 5th to 30th.
Right, in a lot. look in the back of the field. There's some really good racers who got caught up in that race last night where the wreck. You got Eric Almirola, and Eric's due. I think Eric is due to have a big season. Perhaps it's this year.
Yeah, I see he's going to start 38.
Yeah.
In the second duel there.
He got whacked.
Dillon's back there too.
Austin Dillon, yeah. There's a lot of good people in the back of the pack. Now, normally you would concern yourself with that, but at the Daytona 500, it's not something you have to really worry about much. You can work your way up.
You got like I said, you got Harvick and Logano in the middle of the pack.
Yeah. So, I mean, these guys are used to driving and working their way up. So, and then, of course, there's the caution flags. You have no idea when they're going to come out. And it's going to be a long day. I mean, that's how Daytona works. I mean, Daytona is not, a cookie cutter easy situation. It's a super speedway. It's a tri-oval. There's only one of those, which can give people problems. It's the time of year when sun becomes an issue later in the day. That's another problem when you get blind spots. So it's going to be an attrition race, as it always is. And so we'll see.
Now, let me ask you this, Jim. Do you think experience is the big factor for some of these guys? Like we said, Hamlin's won 3 times. Harvick's been there forever. Does that give them an advantage over somebody like an Almirola or a Larson or a Logano?
Yeah, no question. What it does do, this, Chris, is it takes a driver who may not have as a car that is as fast. Let's put it that way. Let's say, pick a guy. You said Eric Almirola. If Almirola's got a really good car, and Logano is not that far behind him from car standpoint, but is not quite as fast as he is. Logano's wiles and his ability to understand what's happened in the track with him before, and the fact that he's comfortable drafting off of other people might get him by Eric, even though Eric's got a faster car. So it's really it's silly to say this because you would think this to be the case everywhere, but Daytona is a driver's track. You must pay attention to what you're doing. As we said earlier, you could end up in a crash even though you've done everything right. So you really have to be up there. So sure, it's one of those things where if you've been there before and you've been in those races and you've seen crashes and you know how to get through them, experience always is a big advantage and a big help. So that's something I would.
Any favorite you got for the race?
I really think that it could be a good year for Logano. I mean, I know he's starting back in the pack, but he definitely is there. I wouldn't overlook Keselowski. I mean, because Brad's one of those guys who, is very easy to piss off people. I mean, he'll do things that, it's a little out of the box. I mean, Brad has always been that way. He dances to his own drum. He's got a new crew chief with a new team, okay? And it's funny, Daytona, you look at this, there's the elements of a driver, right? At Daytona, you're going to have a spotter. Spotters are incredibly crucial at Daytona because there's a lot of places of the track you can't see, from when you're down in the pits area. And the crew chief. So if you got a crew chief and a spotter and a driver who are all on the same page, it's no different than Matt Stafford, being on page with Cooper Kupp, right? Or no different than a pitcher and a catcher in baseball. So there's a lot of analogies that fit NASCAR, and specifically the spotter and the crew chief and the driver, because if they're all working as one, then that can help you a lot, because spotters can see accidents before they happen or as they happen, can guide you through. Crew chiefs can milk that, those tires a little extra, or the gas a little extra. Depending upon that, they may make the change and say, look, we don't need 4 tires, we're going to take 2 and get in and out faster, save you time in the pits. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But yeah, if I have a favorite, I like Keselowski because of how he ran last night. He ran a very smart race, and he was able to block, and that's a huge thing in Daytona, being able to block. So, he probably finished 39th, but right now, I definitely would. I'm on the 6th car, which used to be Mark Martin's car back in the day. There's been a lot of success in that car, and maybe Brad will have it starting tomorrow, Sunday.
One of the cars that I'm looking at too is Alex Bowman. He raced pretty well yesterday. Mm-hmm. He's going up at plus 1,800, but you can also ride it if you want to go. I think he finishes in the top 3. That's at plus 400. Top 5 is still plus 190. Bowman, he's had some good runs. Mm-hmm. He's had some bad runs. Everybody does. But he looked good yesterday.
Yeah.
And he's probably due to actually have a better performance. He's only recorded 3 top 10s in 11 races at Daytona, but he's also won the pole twice there.
Right. So he knows how to run.
Yeah, he knows how to run there. It's just a matter of, can he, like you said, can he battle the attrition and everything else all the way through?
Yeah.
Well, on the flip side, if you're looking for doormats, there's plenty of those. I mean, let's be honest, Quinn Huff is a guy that you might as well pencil in to go to the back of the field, because how that guy still can drive on NASCAR, given how, the lack of awareness he has when it comes to track position and everything else is galling after some of the stuff he pulled last season. But I agree with you about Keselowski. I also think Harvick is bound and has raced well here in his career, and you have to also watch out. As much as like I said, much I don't like them, either one of the bushes could be right near the front, or they both could be near the front.
Right. I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing has got some very talented guys on the team. Interesting situation. Of course, we've got Floyd Mayweather's got a team, and they made the field. You got Michael Jordan and his team, and they're in the field as well. So some celebrity ownership, I guess, would be the way of looking at it.
And sure enough, Jim, if Hendrick's team wins, that will move him into first place for most victories by an owner in Daytona with 16. He's currently tied with the Wood brothers.
Yeah, well, and the Woods brothers have a new kid in their car, which might be helpful. And the other thing is that the Woods brothers are getting their engines from Roush Fenway, which is a good thing for them. Sentimentally, I always am a fan of the 21 car, which is the only car the Woods brothers have left in the situation.
Is that Di Benedetto?
Yeah. The thing, look, let's be honest. This is not the 1970s, so Rick Hendrick's ability to win and pass the Woods brothers is not, it may not happen Sunday, but it will happen soon enough. But it's going to be an interesting race, and I'm also interested in seeing how Jacques Villeneuve and Greg Biffle do. Biffle's been off the radar for 5 years, and he's back.
And it seems like longer than that.
It does. It seems like Greg's been gone for a while, but with COVID, it's like dog years. It's you're never quite sure what the heck happened. So
just real quick for all of you guys out there that like interesting stats, the most Daytona races without a victory at Daytona International Speedway among active drivers. Got a guess, Jim?
You mean in this field?
Yeah.
Okay. Without a victory in Daytona, or a victory at all?
Without a victory in Daytona, period.
Oh, okay. I'll go with Biffle.
Martin Truex.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's run 33 times at Daytona, never won.
Oh.
Finished in the top 5 3 times, finished in the top 10 5 times. He won a bowl,
You
never
know,
won.
yeah, the interesting thing with Truex is he's always a top 10 driver. I mean, he doesn't win as much as you would think, but he's there constantly. And
of course, on the bright side, at least Truex has a long way to go because the record all time for guys that raced at Daytona without a win, Dave Marcis, 67 times went around the track.
Didn't get the check.
Never even won a pole.
Whoa, that's something. All right, well, guys, have a good time. Matthew was saying that Logano has a great spotter too. He does. He's got a good team there. So Nathan's feeling Logano. So we'll see what's going on. John, of course, wants to know about Dartmouth. They seem to.
Yeah, they battle, but the problem is, if you lose by 8 on the road, that doesn't mean you should be favored by 2 at home.
Yeah, nobody ever died for Big Green, folks. Their crew is a pretty good team. All right, so let's go for 2 for the money, right?
I'd probably take the Big Green, the Disney movie with Hamilton Porter from The Sandlot over Dartmouth.
Yeah, that could be
basketball.
So let's go to 2 for the show. 2 for the money. I'm sorry.
Yep, let's go for it here. Like I said, I'm sticking with Cornell over Dartmouth. I don't care if they're an underdog. I can't get sold on a team that is has a winning percentage of 250, a winning percentage of 333 at home, being favored over anyone. I mean, let's face it, John. It's down to +1 now. So there you go. It was 1.5. Now it's back to 1. John, this would be like, would you think that IUPUI should be favored by somebody? Let's say they play Robert Morris at home, let's say they play Robert Morris, at home after they lose to him on the road. Would they be favored in your opinion? I just can't get past it. Oh, I can't believe I have Cornell third twice. That's a typo on my part. I'll fix that.
He likes him so much that he's got him twice.
It was an accident on my part. IPFW, the Mastodons have been on a roll of late, and you got to watch out for them. They're going to go on the road tonight and take care of business against everybody's favorite team, the Green Bay Phoenix, who are 4-21. So look for that to prevail there. We've also got, like we said, the Stars over the Blackhawks, because let's face it, Chicago is not playing good basketball. And I like what the other one was supposed to be was Northern Kentucky. The Norse are another team that have been playing well of late. If you look at the numbers, Northern Kentucky has won, I believe it's 9 of 10. Yeah, 9 of their last 10, 3 in a row. They were 6 and 9. They're now 15 and 10. They're on the road here against Detroit Mercy. The Titans have come back to earth. They lost a couple in a row. And the one loss that the Norse have in that stretch was a 6-point loss at home to Detroit Mercy. I think the Norse are out for revenge. Aaron Horn's team gets the win there.
Just a quick note to Super Slide. Thanks for the NASCAR breakdown, guys. We are more than happy, Super Slide, to give it to you. Kathy, you're losing me with NASCAR. Hang with us, Kathy. We got tons of other stuff. We have a lot of college basketball, which Rich just broke down, and some hockey. So we'll get to you too. And Kathy, it's okay. You can ask questions about anything that you like. We're here to try to help everybody out. And Nathan, of course, had a great line, which was IUPUI won yesterday, so I thought hell froze over, which is quite possible.
It very well may have. I mean, you'll have to find anybody that's up in Hell, Michigan, and ask him.
Right. And Walking Spotted Bear says that NASCAR has some easy value, drivers versus driver, and that's true. Rory wants to know.
Or the groups of the groups of 4,
Sure.
You always end up with somebody good, and then it's like, Timmy Hill and Joey Gase and Scott Reichel.
Right.
And everybody knows that, Scott Reichel's not going to win because that's just his trademark.
Because he doesn't drive, yeah.
And Timmy Hill is always in the back of the field, and Joey Gase can't run on the lead lap to save his life. And as for picks tomorrow, if you want to message me on Twitter afterwards, I've got a whole bunch of them because I don't want to track up a whole bunch of stuff and get people confused with today's games and tomorrow's games. But if you want to hit me up on Twitter or whatever, I can get you somewhat if there's any in particular you're looking at.
And same thing for Nathan. He wants Maryland, Nebraska tomorrow. So we can get.
No, Maryland, Nebraska's tonight, but that's.
Oh, is it? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
I missed it. Sorry. I only happen to be around 20 Maryland grads, so I should have known that. What's your Twitter handle? It's right there. It's Betting Royalty, right, Ryan?
Yep.
It's right there. Well, let me bring them full screen so you see.
Yep, that's it. There's no space though.
There you go. You see it there, Ryan, buddy? Chris is very responsive. He's a good guy, says John Senna. Of course he is.
Yeah, don't let the word get on his reputation.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a definitely. Same for all of you. Hit us up over the weekend. We'll get back to you. All right, let's go for 4 for the show.
Right, we'll move on to that here. We talked about Tom was asking about Carolina at home. The puck line has it going off at plus 145. The money line is minus 170. I like them tonight over Nashville. The Hurricanes should bounce back from the 3-2 overtime loss to Florida the other night. Let's face it, the Hurricanes play well at home. If you look at Colorado and Carolina and Minnesota, those are 3 very good home teams when you get right down to it. And that shouldn't say Vegas over Vegas. I was copying things over from one thing to the other and didn't copy right. It's Vegas over Los Angeles. The Kings playing, I think, the 3rd game in 4 nights for them. Give me an issue. Ohio plus 1.5. They're on the road over Kent State. That's going to be a really good matchup at the Mid-American. The Bobcats trying to hold off a whole slew of teams for the top spot in the Mid-American. You look at that conference right now. Ohio's 13-2, Toledo's 12-3, Kent State's 11-4, Buffalo's 9-4. Akron has fallen off because somehow they lost to Northern Illinois yesterday. Akron is fading, and I can't figure out why. They need to pick up the tempo or something because they're just not playing basketball. Kent State, they're a good team, but I just think Ohio with Vanderplas and Jason Carter and company has a little bit too much to handle. I like the fact that they're getting a couple points going on the road there. Look for that to pan out. And Cleveland State, I know Ryan was asking about them over Milwaukee. Cleveland State, not a very good basketball team. Milwaukee, not a good basketball team. Cleveland State, they bounced back, as I told John last week when we talked about after they lost to UIC. They were playing IUPUI, and John was talking about how the point spread looked like it was too high, and then it was 46-17 at the half. Cleveland State went rolling onto an 83-45 win. Same situation here, basically. Cleveland State coming off a 102-98 triple overtime loss at IPFW Monday night. I feel bad for Milwaukee being the team that has to face them after dealing with that. That's the 2nd close loss in a row for Dennis Gates' team, and we saw how they bounced back against the Jaguars. I feel bad for the Panthers. Look for Cleveland State to get the win.
Okay, let's move to the menu because we have plenty of stuff to do here.
Yeah, it's a big night for the Ivy League. Like Jim said, Fridays are always big for the Ivy. You're going to be looking at some entertaining games here. Harvard over Columbia. I know Tommy Amaker's team is reeling. I have to wonder if Amaker had any issues with the fact that, it all came out about how Krzyzewski picked John Shire to replace him over Amaker because he wanted Amaker to come back and be an assistant for a year, and which would bump somebody else off the staff for him to take the job. I personally think Amaker's done a fine job at Harvard. I don't think he should play second fiddle to anybody. But I look for them there. We talked about Princeton and Brown. Princeton 17-5. You have to give them the advantage, even going on the road against Brown. We just saw asking about Nebraska and Maryland. Nebraska's coming off their first Big Ten win of the season. They beat Minnesota by double figures. we're talking about a Maryland team that is really, I feel bad for Danny Manning walking into that dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland's lost 5 straight. They now have to go on the road. Eric Ayala is questionable, and he's their leading scorer for Maryland. And let's face it, Nebraska's actually found some offense. They like to run, and that's going to test Maryland's depth and Maryland's talent. I'll take the points.
Maybe we should take a screenshot, because this might be the only time you see a Nebraska Cornhusker team as a favorite here.
Yeah, it's kind of like Austin Peay earlier in the week.
Right, exactly. I just wanted to make sure that hell hadn't froze over. I looked out the window real quick. So
yeah, Hale -4 over Penn. Both teams have played well since going into Ivy League play. I mean, both teams struggled in non-conference play. Hale was 6-8. Penn was 3-10. Since then, Yale has gone 8-1 in the Ivy League. Penn has gone 8-2. Oddly enough, Yale's one loss in the Ivies was an 8-point loss at Penn in January. But since then, they've won 6 straight, including a sweep with Harvard. They've beaten Princeton. I like Yale at home. James Jones seems to have his team going in the right direction. Steve Donahue, I'm glad that his team's back up to near 500, but it's tough to go up and beat Yale in New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you know that, Jim. You've been up there. I'm
yeah,
sure.
it is. It's tough, and if Yale's got some good fans, which Penn has good fans, Yale has good fans. They're for the most part only Columbia and who do we have earlier? The game Dartmouth. That's what I was trying to remember. Dartmouth and the folks at Columbia are not such good fans. Other than that, the Ivies, they don't have big gyms, but they show up.
Right, and guys, I know you can disagree with Nebraska, that's fine. I just don't have faith in a Maryland team that's lost 5 in a row and might not have their leading scorer. As a fan, Danny Manning has said, quote, that he's been taking part in practices, but not all of the practices. So you have to wonder, he didn't play the other night against Purdue. Is he going to play tonight? Nobody can tell you because they don't know either. If he doesn't play, Maryland's in trouble. As it is, they haven't played that well anyway. And I just like the points at home. Butler +8 over St. John's. St. John's, I swear, is bipolar. They can't figure out what they're going to do from one game to the next. They lose to Villanova. They lose to Connecticut. They beat Xavier. They lose to Providence. They beat Georgetown. They beat Butler the first time, but they only beat Butler by 3. And let's not forget this is St. John's team that lost to Pitt earlier this season, which was horrifying, considering how bad Pitt's been. I'll take the points at Butler. I don't like Butler that much, but I like St. John's less here. VCU -3 over Richmond. The battle of teams from the Richmond area there. It's at VCU. I think VCU will prevail in that contest. Yes, I thought the Spiders might have something for VCU too, but Richmond's another team. They have a ton of guys with experience, but they just haven't played as well as you'd think. They lost to VCU by 2 at home. They lost to George Mason in overtime last week. But they've also got trounced by 27 points by St. Joe's, and let's face it, St. Joe's isn't any good. So I can't figure Richmond out either. I figured with all those guys coming back, Golden and Sherrod and Gilliard and Ko, that they would have been a lot better than what they've been. I figured they'd be at or near the top of the A10. Instead, they're sitting right in the middle. They're 6th, 8-5 mark, but they're 3 games behind Davidson. They're 2 behind Dayton and VCU, and they're still behind St. Louis and St. Bonaventure. Richmond's one of those teams where you can't figure them out. I don't think they know what the problem is either. Unfortunately, Moody's going to get whacked for it. Florida, Minnesota, we said I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. They'll end up over. Nashville, Carolina, I don't know. I think I lean towards the under just because it's getting plus money, and I think that with Anderson and Saros. You got two good goaltenders. Carolina leads the league in goals against. I think that one will probably be a 3-2 game. It might edge over with an empty netter, but I'll hedge my bets on the under. Dallas and Chicago, I look to go over. The over's gone over, or it's hit the last, I think, 7 meetings between these teams. We saw Chicago have a total of 11 last night in that 7-4 loss to Columbus. Dallas should take advantage of that or push the number over. And the Kings and the Knights, I look to go over 6 just because Vegas is a good team. Jack Eichel should probably play better than he played Wednesday night. And the Kings, you never know what you're going to get out of them on either.
So let's talk for a moment because we have, excuse me, because we have an interesting question because Kathy got to us early and wanted to know what your favorites were for some parlays tonight. So let's give her some of your favorite things going on for this evening.
Let's see. Well, as much as everybody is weirded out by the line, I think Cornell, like I said, IPFW. I like the Stars. I like Minnesota, as in the Wild. I like Carolina, and probably either Princeton or Cleveland State would be the 6th one I would put in there.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to play a total, I would look for Minnesota and Florida to go over, just because of the fact that those two teams like the land wherever they go.
Okay, Kathy, you got that? I'm sure you do. So that way, you got him from the man himself, and we don't guarantee anything here, but we certainly say that we're going to give you our best estimates of what might happen.
We try to hit more than we miss.
Yeah, and that actually works. So we've been pretty good at that. But like everything else out there, it's called betting for a reason. And it's not called sure thing, but we do the best we can. So, no, we're here. And Ryan, thank you for being here. By the way, before you guys leave, do us a favor. Smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button. And, we're here to serve, and we'd like to see how well you guys enjoy it. Okay, so by all means, comment below. We'll take a look at those comments. I always look for the comments and any of that stuff. So, we're interactive. We want you to be as interactive with us, okay? Because you're our little family here that comes and sees us every day. And all we're trying to do is help you out, okay? Speaking of helping out, top of the hour, 3 o'clock, Scott and Scott will be there to do their best to help you out. And back to the window, 3 o'clock right here on the Whiners and Whiners Sports Betting Network, okay? So, Chris, any final thoughts before we exit stage right here on a Friday?
Well, like I said, it's gonna be a good weekend for everybody that loves sports. You're gonna have a ton of good college basketball this weekend. Watch out for the mid-majors because everybody overlooks them. And you're gonna see some good quality games there. So tune in for those. Obviously, like I said, the Daytona 500 is Sunday. The All-Star Game, for those of you that are fans of professional wrestling, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is tomorrow. I think it starts at noon Eastern time because they're in Saudi Arabia or something like that.
Yeah.
So it means it doesn't have to clash with anything that you necessarily want to watch. But basically, enjoy it and, have a good time. And, just remember, like we always tell you, bet responsibly because the worst thing you want to do is put yourself in a situation where, the leg breaker comes by and wants his money.
You're playing behind the sticks, as they say in football. Quick note: if you're a golf fan, Riviera is a fantastic course in Los Angeles. It's the Genesis tournament, which of course is the tournament afterwards, where last year Tiger Woods was injured in the car accident. I like Jordan Spieth. He got off to a good start, and he plays Riviera very well. So if you're looking for a golf thing this weekend, Jordan Spieth might be something to look at. Okay. All right. So as Chris says, there's a whole lot of crazy going on, a lot of fun, and we got the NBA All-Star Weekend. We got NASCAR's Super Bowl, which they start right off the season with at Daytona, which means there's racing tonight with the with the trucks. There'll be the Xfinity race tomorrow, and then of course there'll be the 500 at 3 o'clock on Eastern time on Sunday. So there's plenty of stuff to watch. I think the closing ceremonies of the Olympics happens tonight, and then onward and upward. Okay, so plenty of good stuff to watch. Be safe out there, as Chris says. Bet wisely and bet responsibly, and come back and see us on Monday and tell us how you did, because we're going to be here. We're like death and taxes, folks. You can't get rid of us. We shall be here, and we shall be having some fun. So enjoy yourself. We enjoy ourselves talking to you guys. So have fun and use the BetMGM app or the Caesars Sportsbook when you do it, because they have been very good to us. As the Garrett Morse character on the old Saturday Night Live says, baseball been very good to me, and BetMGM and Caesars has been very good to us. So by all means, check them out too. Okay. All right, gang.
Yeah, like I said, guys, if you need to find me, see my handle right there. Feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, and I put it in the timeline, so it will forever be memorialized. If you miss anything, guys, remember you can always catch the podcast. Okay, on wherever you get podcasts, it's there. Just Parlays with Chris King. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. We'll see you on Monday. Everybody, be safe, enjoy, and bet wisely.